Hi friends, this is Rebecca of Rebecca's Retro, back with another Friday Finds video. And today I'm going to talk about milk glass, that beautiful pure white glass that's been made into all kinds of dishes. Now as I begin to show you the pieces here today, I'm sure you're going to be saying, oh, I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that around. And in fact, it's been around so much and used in so many places that I call milk glass the little black dress of the dish world, because you can dress it up or down, you can accessorize it in so many different ways that it works for almost any occasion and for virtually any holiday. So let's get going and look at what I have to show you here today. Most people know milk glass from bud vases. These were the go-to for florists for many, many years, and now are frequently used in wedding receptions or other kinds of receptions on the tables. And they are quite lovely grouped together. This is one that I have here, and here's another one of these pretty bud vases. Look at the detail on this. They really are gorgeous if you put them together. But milk glass is a whole lot more than bud vases. Milk glass first burst on the American decorating dishware scene in the late 1800s, 1890 or so, and it was very popular from around 1890 to 1910. Then it kind of disappeared for a while, which often happens in decorating world and dish world. But it reemerged in the 1940s and 50s, and it has continued to be popular ever since. But the 1940s and 50s were probably the heyday for milk glass. The companies that we most identify with milk glass are Westmoreland, which created huge amounts of milk glass over the years. Fenton also is very well known, Indiana Glass, Jeanette, I can't remember what the initials are, L.B. Smith, L.E. Smith, something like that. And then there were lots of other different companies. But Westmoreland and Fenton are really kind of the leading producers of milk glass. And what I'm going to show you today are a number of their pieces. The early milk glass, particularly from the turn of the century and even in the 40s, was much more translucent than the milk glass that we saw a little later. And it's interesting because I don't often see the translucent glass, the milk glass, at Harris Auction, my hometown source of all things vintage. But recently I picked up two of these candy dishes, these pedestal candy dishes in the Old Colony pattern that are the creamier, white, more translucent version. And they're very pretty. But most of what most people think of when they think of milk glass these days is the opaque, very white glass. I want to show you an example of how you can dress up milk glass. Here's that same little old colonial candy dish that I showed you. I've woven a colored ribbon through the holes on the edge of the bowl and tied it in a pretty little bow, and there put in some candies, pastel candies. Wouldn't this be pretty for a baby shower, a wedding shower? But you can see you could put all different colors of ribbon. I'm thinking for Christmas, a red or green ribbon, put in some shiny little balls for 4th of July, red, white, and blue, and put in some bright red candies. As I said, milk glass is one of those kinds of dishes that you can use almost any time of year and for almost any occasion. Another piece that I have of the more translucent is this hen on a nest. This is the small hen on a nest, and I'm betting you've seen that. But look, when I take it, you can see it looks almost blue when you shine the light through it. This I also have in a bigger version, and I read somewhere that these came with mustard in them, which I find hard to imagine, but that seems to be how they were originally sold. But today they make fine little candy dishes or trinket dishes. I'm betting you've seen a chicken on the nest somewhere. I have quite a few of these in the store. I'm quite a fan of the chicken on a nest. One of the very popular milk glass patterns is hobnail. Fenton had hobnail, and then a lot of the other companies picked it up. This is one of those other companies. This is not Fenton, and it's very opaque glass. Very pretty ruffled rim on this piece, a nice round base. As you can imagine, this looks gorgeous with a bright bouquet of flowers in it. And it's a big enough piece that it makes a pretty hefty centerpiece on a table. A couple years ago at Hare's Auction, I picked up a whole bunch of these beautiful Westmoreland baskets. This one is round with kind of a blossom design on it. I love these little, almost like teeth or flap kind of base there. Pretty handle. I also have a Westmoreland oval basket, and this is in the paneled grape pattern there, grape and leaf. But again, look at that base. And on this one, the handles almost have a wood grain look to it. It doesn't show up very well. The Westmoreland mark is on the base of these, and again, it really doesn't show up in these pictures, but it is there, I can assure you of that. These are quite heavy. That's the interesting thing about milk glass. It's not fragile glass, which is probably why so much of it is still around these days. It really was quite hefty glass. There were all kinds of boxes, dishes, bowls, lots and lots of candy dishes. This is a square candy dish in Westmoreland's old quilt pattern. And isn't that pretty? So that you can see that one there. Most of the milk glass that you'll see is pure white, although, I mean, it was made in other colors as well, but I'm talking about the white milk glass here. But Westmoreland did make a line where they had hand-painted flowers and then little swags of leaves and other flowers coming down. And this is in the beaded grape pattern. You can see the bead around the edge of the lid. I like this because the Westmoreland label is even still on this one. So I'm guessing this one really probably was very little used because that label is still there. Another pretty candy dish. I talked about how you can dress milk glass up or down, but one of the fun things that I've noticed in my looking around, I love looking at Pinterest and seeing how people are using vintage dishes and vintage decorative items. And there are some really creative uses of milk glass pieces. And I put together just a few here to show you. One of the things that shows up frequently at Hare's, and I'm not quite sure, are these milk glass top hats. This is in Westmoreland's daisy and button pattern. And doesn't that make a darling vase? Look at these. If you had a whole line of these down the middle of a table, it would look quite striking. And I actually have enough of these in my store that you could do that. I don't know what these top hats were originally intended for, but this one makes a very nice vase. And here I have a smaller version of that top hat, and I stuck in some crayons, and this makes a fun thing for a kid's table at a holiday dinner or even at a party. So that's a creative use of milk glass, which I'm sure the manufacturers never thought of. Recently, in a picture in a magazine, I saw somebody who had their whole arts and crafts room using milk glass, these larger vases, to hold their arts and crafts supplies. So here I stuck in some colored pencils and pens. Doesn't that look pretty? But that picture, everything was in milk glass, and it was on open shelves, and it looked stunning. I thought, oh, that would be so much fun in an arts and crafts room or even a homeschool room. So if you're thinking, what would I do with that stuff? I don't know what I'd do with that milk glass. Go take a look at Pinterest or be on the lookout in magazines, and I'm betting you'll get some pretty good ideas and may even find yourself saying, I've got to get me some of that. The last thing I want to show you here is this large canister in a hobnail and banded kind of pattern. Now this one is a bit more translucent again. You can see, you can almost see my hand through there, but it is heavy. It's not quite as heavy as the opaque, but it's a heavy piece. I don't know if there was a whole canister set in this, but this is what I picked up at Harris. And I'm thinking you could put a lot of great stuff in that. So I encourage you to take a look at that. Well, that's milk glass for this week. One of those ubiquitous, I wanted to be sure to get that word in, styles of glass that's been around for a long time. And I am delighted that I see a lot of young women falling in love with milk glass, just as their grandmothers, or in some cases even great grandmothers, fell in love with it back in the 40s and 50s. And it's an inexpensive kind of glass. You can find it in thrift stores, at flea markets, at yard sales, or if you don't want to run around looking for it, I have a good amount of milk glass at Rebekah's Retro at Etsy.com. So I'd love to have you stop by and check out what I have there. So that's it for this week. Milk glass. Another vintage dishware idea to help you get you hooked on vintage as much as I am. I look forward to seeing you back here again next week, and I hope you have a great week, and maybe you'll pick up your first piece of milk glass or your next piece of milk glass. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks. Bye.